Hey guys, I'm John P. And on today's episode of Geek Beat, we're going to take a look at the wireless mesh network from Ubiquiti known as UniFi.
This episode of Geek Beat TV is brought to you by Squarespace.
Okay, you guys might recall a few weeks ago we took a look at a different wireless mesh network. It came from a company called Open Mesh. This is a totally different system, so we're going to change gears on you. We'll talk about how they differ a little bit later, but pretty much we're just going to focus on the UniFi system as a whole standalone review. I want to show you the whole thing end to end today. So let's talk about the components that we're going to look at first. Before I tell you what we installed here, what you should know is there are many other variants that you could use. We used the UniFi Pros, which these particular access points will do A, B, G, and N wireless. They have up to 750 meg of throughput, gigabit Ethernet, etc. But they also have some of the non-Pro variants, and then they have some different indoor and outdoor units. So there's a bunch of different ones. You're gonna have to take a look at them. The ones that we used, we've got this 3-pack. We installed all 3 of these access points, and these went for, they're around 650 bucks, let's say. We also used a switch. This is a switch that they make called the Tough Switch, PoE. We'll talk about that in a minute. And these go for about 100 bucks. And then we also have the outdoor version, the outdoor routers, and these you can pick them up for under 150. So altogether, you're probably looking at, let's say, under $1,000 if you go this high end. But you can go with lower end models, and you could be in the less than $500 range. So conceptually, you can move the pricing up and down here. Let's talk about why you would want to do this. Okay, in a normal environment, whether it's a home or office, a lot of people just go and buy one router and they stick it in their network and it has Wi-Fi built into it. But when you do that, you end up with a lot of little pockets around the perimeter that you just can't reach with your equipment. So it's better if you can break it up into routing and wireless and have the two be separate. So what we're looking at here is just a bunch of wireless access points that don't do routing. Okay, so the theory we have is instead of just the one little router access point, we're going to strategically place multiple access points, and they're going to all be aware of one another and kind of hand off people as they move from one location to another. We want a single SSID network that you can see everywhere, hop on anywhere, and if you carry your laptop from a room or an office to a meeting room or another room, you don't have to make any changes. So that's what we've installed here. We've got 3 of these Wi-Fi access points that are indoor, 1 outdoor, and the switch. Let's take a look at how they're physically hooked up. Okay, so we've got our network closet here, and we went with this 5-port switch. I'm sorry, this is the 8-port switch. And what happens is each of these ports, you have to go in and configure it, and you tell it which ports to enable. In our case, right now, we have 3 of them enabled, and these go to 3 different access points. Now, one thing you have to keep in mind is these ports are also delivering power over Ethernet. That means that when we mount these little wireless access points, wherever we mount them, we don't need to plug them into the wall for power. We are plugging them into this switch, which is getting power from the rack, and it is sending power over the Ethernet cable to the Wi-Fi. So it's taking connectivity here through this little black cable goes up into this big Cisco switch. It's taking internet connectivity or network connectivity from that, combining it with the power and sending it through these 3 wires. When we turn that on, these internal wireless access points use 24 volts. And when we configured the switch, we told it for ports 1, 2, and 3, send them 24 volts. Now the outdoor access point only uses 12 volts. So in that case, you'd have to tell it which port on the switch was what the outdoor one was plugged into, and only send it 12 volts because you don't want to burn it out. So keep that in mind if you get this system, okay? Now, so we go from these particular ports out through these cables up through the office into various locations. The first one we stuck was right here. Now the reason we put it here is because you'll see we have a big open area, and we wanted this whole area to have nice internet connectivity. Plus there's a couple of offices back over there, so that one will cover all of this area and even get the back patio if we want it to. Although we are planning on putting our outside access point out there later on. We also have one back over in that corner in an office, in a conference room where we could never get our previous router that was in the closet over there. It just wouldn't reach over there. It was completely unreliable. But now, with one Ethernet cable running up through the ceiling, we've dropped that access point over there. Everything's perfect. Plus, we have another that goes way over to the other side of the building, up near the front office. And so we have these three kind of in a triangle, giving us complete coverage. Now, the question is, how do you configure it so that it works? And how hard is it to do? Because obviously plugging it in is as simple as running one cable. Oh, and then you do make a little bit of a mess when you're mounting these things, because you pull these ceiling tiles out and there's three little screws that you push through the ceiling tile, and then you kind of snap the router, snap the access point on there, and anyway, you can see it makes a little bit of a mess, but it's pretty easy to do. Believe it or not, the configuration, not that hard either. Let's go talk to Ken about that. But before we do, let's thank our sponsor,
Squarespace. These days, you don't have time to spend a ton of time designing and managing your website. In fact, it's so much easier to throw something up and get back to concentrating on the reason you even have a website in the first place, the content inside of it. Squarespace makes it easy for you to do that and make it look fantastic at the same time. Over 20 customizable themes. Don't worry, you don't have to actually know any code to customize them. It's easy and useful, and it has everything you need. And it starts at just $8 a month with a free domain name when you sign up for a year. No credit card required. Just sign up at squarespace.com. Use offer code GeekBeat10. That's because this month is October, and what month is that?
10.
10. So remember that.
Okay guys, so you know Ken, he's our uber smart engineer around here. Ken, we were just taking a look at the physical components, the different Wi-Fi access points, indoor and outdoor. We looked at how we have the switch mounted in the rack and basically just run a single Ethernet cable to each of these access points. So I don't think I forgot anything on the hardware setup. It was really about that simple, right?
Yeah, it's pretty simple. The one thing you've forgotten though is that we have to have a software controller to control all these access points at the same time.
Oh, now let's just focus on that for a second, because like with one of our home type routers, we would plug that in and we log into a web-based interface and configure that router. We don't do that with these?
It's similar, but you're running a little back-end application that does its little thing, and it loads up a web browser that you can use to control the system itself.
So first thing, we need a computer on our network at home or in the office that's kind of permanently on, that's always there and available, or at least whenever we need to configure something?
When you need to configure it, you need to have the computer running to actually run the little software, but if there's no software running, the access points would just run on their own without any problem.
So just a computer that anytime we make a change, that's the one we're going to make the change on.
That's right.
And we install the controller software on that computer.
That's it.
Which I guess means also that the configuration is always within our control. It's not being done on some cloud or managed by a third-party source. It's a little more secure that way.
Yeah, all the configuration data, all the passwords, all the routing information, that's saved locally, so you don't have to worry about someone else sneaking a look at it from some other service.
Okay. Now, how hard is it to get that thing running and configure it? Could I do it?
Oh yeah, sure. All you have to do is just run and install the application. Once you launch it, if you've never configured any of the access points before, it will go and discover all the access points, and all you have to do is just click adopt them, and they'll become part of your network.
Okay, so we hooked up. Right now we have 3 of the access points hooked up. When you ran the software, it just said, okay, here's 1, 2, and 3.
That's it.
But they all look the same. How do you know which one is which?
Well, fortunately, there's a little button called locate where you push it. It makes the access point blink.
Oh, nice.
So you know which one you're working on at the time.
Now, can you go in and tell it, like, that's the conference room Wi-Fi access point?
Yeah, sure. You can name them. You can give them a comment, put some notes on them on where it's placed. You can also have this nice little map here that shows you where you put the access point. You just drag and drop it where it is.
Okay, it's found the access points. Now we want to go in and like give it an SSID. We want to give it a password, security, things like that. What do you do?
Well, unlike traditional ones where you would log into the access point and give them an ID and whatnot, what you actually do is you log into the controller software and tell it what SSID you want to use. And the controller software will push out that information to all the different access points that are assigned to it.
So we don't have to do them one at a time?
No, you just do it once and everything gets pushed out.
How many access points will it push it out to?
There's really no limit. It can push as many as you have assigned to the system.
So we can have 100 of these access points?
I believe you can. Yeah.
Okay. What kind of other things might we be able to do with the controller?
Well, some of the cool things you can do is set up a guest network system, similar to like a hotspot or a hotel or a conference where you would have a lot of random people coming in, and you don't want to put them on your internal network because that's kind of dangerous. So you can create like a guest wireless network and put them on there instead.
That way they're isolated from the internal network, and they probably, I guess they can't talk to each other or see each other's files as well.
They really can't talk to each other the way we have it. You can set it up in different ways. By default, it blocks all computer-to-computer communications on the guest network.
Okay.
But we can whitelist specific computers or specific ranges of IP addresses, such as that if you're at a conference room and you want your people to get your guests to come on and sign on, they can still access things like the Apple TV to send their presentation to.
Oh, cool. So, for example, if people came into our studio here and somebody wanted to do a presentation and they had a Mac, and we have an Apple TV back in the conference room, you're saying they could get on our wireless guest network, and although they can't see any of our Drobos in the closet or any of our other machines, they could present to our Apple TV.
That's exactly right.
That's awesome. How about a printer?
Yeah, if we set it up that way, they can access the printers as well.
Cool. Okay. Well, what if you had different departments in different, let's say different floors or different buildings, different departments? Can you fix it so that with one controller and with 100 access points, some of them can access certain things and some can access others?
Well, what you can do is you can set up multiple wireless LANs, which are attached to specific VLANs that you can separate out inside your network.
Okay.
So certain floors can only have access to certain parts of the network, and that way everyone has access to the same wireless system, and everything's controlled from one place, but you can isolate people off and segment them off as needed.
So do you need a Ken to be able to set this stuff up realistically? I mean, because you're going to have to set up, if you did something like that, you're going to have multiple LANs and VLANs and things anyway.
You're going to have some knowledge of how to do networks and have some basic understanding of how networks work and how to configure them. But it's fairly straightforward if you're doing just basic systems. Okay.
What else? What are we missing? What kind of things can we do that we didn't talk about yet?
Well, some of the cool things you can do is like see statistics on the access points. You know, like here you can see this nice little chart, like which access points are being used, which ones are struggling, which ones you need to go in and take a look at and see if you need to move them around or change their settings to make it more efficient for your users.
Or like maybe if you had a particular area that one of them was just getting hammered, you could go add a second access point in that area to share the load?
Exactly. You can see how much is, see what's being overloaded.
Cool.
And you can see lists of users and see who's connected to them, how long they've been connected. You can see if you have the same users coming in all the time and their signals are pretty low, maybe they're in a spot of the building where they're just not in a good spot. They need to either move or we need to find a better way to get them connected.
Nice. Now this is our network here, right?
This is our network right here.
It's amazing because it's showing us the signal that each device is getting, and it looks like everything's getting like 70% to 90%, 100%. So I guess our coverage is working now.
Yeah, coverage is pretty good. And we can even see how much data they've uploaded and downloaded and how long they've been on the network as well.
Nice. Nice. So we know if somebody's abusing the network.
Exactly. So that way you can block them and go have a little talk with them.
All right. What other kind of stuff do we need to look at?
You can see guest information, of course, too. See who's on the guest network and deauthorize them. And you can get some insights, too, on like things like rogue access points. So these access points can actually detect other access points.
Wait a minute.
In the space.
You mean if somebody came into our office and set up an access point that we didn't necessarily want to be running, these access points see that access point and report back?
Not just inside the office, but outside. Like our neighbors, we can see access points that our neighbors have put up as well.
Can we mess with their access point?
We can't mess with them, but we know where they're transmitting, what they're transmitting on.
Okay.
And about where they are based relative to which access point that we've detected it on.
So do we see things like the strength of their network and stuff? If we wanted to have a network battle royale because they were bleeding over into our space, we could put a bunch more access points over there and overwhelm theirs?
No, we can't see how much power they're putting out. We just see that they're transmitting on these frequencies and have a general idea of where they might be relative to our access points.
Cool. Any other goodies?
Those are the best things right now. There's some other small, high-end level advanced things such as VLAN provisioning and things like that. But for the most users, that's a pretty heavy feature set as it is.
That is, especially at the price point. Okay, guys. So I hope that answered a lot of your questions about the whole wireless mesh network here from Ubiquiti. The UniFi network, that's what it's called. If you have other questions, go to our blog post at geekbeat.tv/UniFi, UNIFI. And we will answer all of them in the comments. Ken's going to put out a very detailed, there's going to be more information there than we've even gone over here. But keep in mind, everything we just talked about for in the $500 to $1,000 range. That is just unbelievable value, okay? So think about going in, separating out your routing from your Wi-Fi, get a mesh network like this, and you'll be much happier in life. We'll see you later. Thumbs up on YouTube. I'm out of here.